How do you go about acquiring large blocks without disturbing the market too much? Do you do it in your own name, or what is the procedure? Mr. Graham, there are two procedures. One is to acquire shares in the open market over a period of time. The other is by making a bid for a specified or unspecified number of shares, which is made public and which all stockholders have the opportunity to accept. You start buying in the market and you reveal your interest and everyone knows what you are doing. I wondered how you proceed. That could happen, but very often it does not. I give you an example. In a book I wrote, The Intelligent Investor, I gave an example of an undervalued security, the Northern Pacific Railroad stock, which at the time of my first analysis sold at 20 and later went down to 14. We decided to buy a fair amount of stock. I should say that after reading the book once or twice, I convinced myself the shares should be bought. We went ahead and acquired about 50,000 shares of that stock in the market with comparatively little effect on the price. There were about 2.5 million shares altogether. The chairman, that is a pretty big company. Mr. Graham, yes indeed, but that was a large investment for us. But there are other instances in which where companies are smaller, it is not equally feasible to acquire shares in the open market, and it might be desirable to make a bid or offer, as it is generally called, to acquire shares in some public way. The chairman, you make no effort to conceal your interest in a special situation or to deal through trust companies or other accounts? Mr. Graham, well, in most of our purchases, the vast majority of them, the purchase of shares is the same way anyone else would through brokerage houses who act for us, and there is no concealment. The chairman, to your knowledge, are there many instances of concealment of the purchaser in acquisition of stock? Mr. Graham, well, you might say that virtually all companies that are acquired in the open market, I mean where control is acquired in the open market, in virtually all these cases there is some degree of concealment. That is to say, nobody publishes the fact that he and his group are acquiring control in the open market. It would obviously be unwise from a business point of view. Sometimes the news gets around, but generally it is unofficial. There have been a few instances, comparatively few, in which efforts are made to acquire control of a company, generally through a reputable bank or trust company, where the name of the purchaser is not revealed. In other cases, it is revealed. The chairman, we have had suggestions that this is done, and I was wondering what the process is and whether or not you do it or have done it. I wonder if you could describe for us the way that you can acquire control without revealing your identity. Not applicable to yourself necessarily. How would anyone do it? Mr. Graham, well, outside of the method of acquiring control in the open market, which I've said before is the most customary way, the other method would be to ask a bank or a trust company to communicate to the stockholders an offer to buy the shares, generally at a price above the market, and state the acquisition is being made for clients of the trust company without giving their names. The chairman, there is no requirement if a trust company purchases stock on the exchange to reveal the beneficial owner. Is that right? Do they not have to say, we are buying this for Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith? Mr. Graham, no, obviously not, sir. The chairman, so that would be the usual way, simply to use an established firm which is in and out of the market for your agent to purchase for you. Mr. Graham, yes, that would not be a trust company. Normally that would be a brokerage firm. The chairman, does a broker have to reveal who his principal is? Mr. Graham, no. On the contrary, it is one of the basic principles of Wall Street that relationship between the broker and the client is confidential, and the name should not be revealed except to authorities who have legitimate reason to ask for the information. The chairman, that is an important exception. What about a trust company? If the Chase National Bank purchases shares and they are asked by the president of the exchange to whom they are buying for, do they tell them? Is it the same as the broker? Mr. Graham, the president of the New York Stock Exchange has no authority over anyone except members of the New York Stock Exchange. The chairman, well then, there is a difference. As to the brokers, he has access to the beneficial owner, but he does not have as to the trust company. Is that right? Mr. Graham, that would be true with respect to the president of the stock exchange, yes. The chairman, who would have control? The SEC? Mr. Graham, as a reservation, I am not certain of the constitution of the stock exchange, the president's power to ask the brokers for the names of their clients or their dealings. but I assume that in the investigations that the stock exchanges make into its own dealings, including such as manipulation and so forth, such information is asked for and given. The Chairman: I understand that with regard to the members for disciplinary purposes that they have the right to inquire, but I would not be too certain about that. Mr. Graham: I believe that is so, but I'm not sure. The Chairman: When there is a battle for control of a company, the stockholders who intend to remain with the company would want to know whether they should participate in the battle or should sell out, and the identity of the purchaser would be important to them in such circumstances, would it not? Mr. Graham: Well, if you are speaking for a battle for control in terms of proxy battle, of course the identity of the people who are endeavouring to obtain a majority of the votes by proxy solicitation is absolutely vital, and the proxy rules require that complete disclosure be made as of the identity of such persons. With respect to purchases of shares, however, that is an entirely different matter, and the theory of the stock market is that people are allowed to purchase shares anonymously. It will be a little embarrassing for many people if each time they bought and sold shares their identity would have to be revealed. The Chairman: Of course, it is not done customarily, but it is subject to being revealed in an investigation at any time, is it not? Mr. Graham: As far as I know, the revelations of purchases of shares have been limited pretty much to criminal activities. I do not recall cases in which the names of buyers have been revealed, even though they may be known to the authorities, merely because these people can happen to have bought stock.